In 2012, a single image appeared on an anonymous message board with no caption, no context, and one line of text. We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. Thousands of people spent years trying to solve what came next. Some claim it changed their entire career. Others say it nearly cost them their sanity. This is the story of the internet's most disturbing rabbit holes. The mysteries so strange the internet still hasn't fully climbed out of them. Every rabbit hole on this list starts the same way. One strange image, one piece of unexplained footage, or one real tragedy that got swallowed by the internet's obsession with mystery. Some of these stories are genuine unsolved puzzles. Some are elaborate hoaxes that fooled millions. And some are real deaths that got turned into entertainment by people who never bothered to check the facts. We're separating all three, starting with the internet's most famous puzzle, and ending with the case that still hasn't let go of the people who investigated it. January 4, 2012. An anonymous post appears on the image board 4chan. Just a black image, white text, hello. We are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. No explanation. No sender. Just a challenge. Within hours, thousands of amateur cryptographers are hooked. The first clue hides a message using steganography, data concealed inside the image file itself. Solving it reveals a phone number. Calling it plays a robotic voice reciting more numbers, which point to a prime number sequence, which leads to a URL, which leads to another cipher. Over the following weeks, the puzzle escalates into something almost absurd in scope. Clues hidden in physical flyers posted in 14 countries simultaneously, on the same day, at the same time, meaning whoever built this had real-world logistics, not just internet access. Participants who solved every stage report being contacted directly and told simply that the puzzle was over for that year, with zero explanation of who was behind it or why. Cicada 3301 repeated in 2013 and 2014, then went quiet. To this day, nobody officially knows who created it. Theories range from an intelligence agency recruiting cryptographers, to a private tech company, to a decentralized collective with no leader at all. What's not in dispute? The puzzles used real, extremely advanced cryptographic techniques. This wasn't some low-effort troll. Someone spent serious money and expertise building a global scavenger hunt with no obvious payoff. And Cicada is one of the internet's tamer mysteries. The next one didn't come from a message board. It came from outer space, and nobody has ever explained it. August 15, 1977. Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope is scanning the sky as part of a routine search for extraterrestrial radio signals. 3 days later, astronomer Jerry Ehrman is reviewing the printout data by hand and finds a 72-second burst of radio signal roughly 30 times stronger than the background noise of deep space. The signal was so unusual, so far outside anything expected, that Ehrman circled the alphanumeric sequence on the printout, 6EQUJ5, and wrote one word next to it in red pen, wow. The name stuck permanently. The signal came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, near a group of stars roughly 220 light-years away. It has never repeated. Despite dozens of follow-up search attempts using increasingly sensitive equipment over the following 5 decades, nobody has ever detected it again, not once. Proposed explanations range from a comet outgassing hydrogen, a theory later disputed by researchers who checked comet positions at the time, to a one-off reflection of a terrestrial signal, to the explanation SETI researchers refused to rule out, an artificial transmission from somewhere else entirely. A puzzle nobody can trace and a signal nobody can repeat. Now we go from outer space to something far more unsettling. A hijacking that happened right in the middle of a television broadcast, live, in front of thousands of witnesses. November 22, 1987. Chicago. During the 9 p.m. newscast on WGN-TV, the picture suddenly cuts out for several seconds and is replaced by a masked figure wearing a rubber mask styled after the TV character Max Headroom, standing in front of a corrugated metal background that sways as if unstable. WGN's engineers scramble and cut the feed within seconds. Roughly 2 hours later, it happens again, this time on WTTW, a PBS affiliate, interrupting an episode of Doctor Who for nearly 90 seconds. This time nobody manages to cut the signal fast enough. The masked figure makes garbled, disjointed statements, briefly bares his backside to the camera, and is spanked with a flyswatter by an unseen accomplice before the hijack cuts out entirely. Hijacking a broadcast signal of this kind required specialized, expensive equipment, enough power to physically override a station's licensed transmission, and the perpetrators would have needed to be extremely close to the broadcast towers themselves. The FCC and FBI investigated. Nobody was ever identified, arrested, or came forward publicly. To this day, it remains one of the only unsolved broadcast signal intrusions in American television history. A costume, a flyswatter, and total anonymity. It sounds almost funny, until you remember that whoever did it had the technical capability to hijack a live broadcast twice in one night and vanish completely. Next, the mystery gets a face. Or rather, thousands of people became convinced they'd seen the same face in their dreams. Starting in 2006, a psychiatrist reportedly noticed something odd. Multiple unrelated patients described dreaming about the exact same man's face, described consistently as having arched eyebrows, a receding hairline, and thin lips. A website launched in 2008 encouraged visitors worldwide to submit their own accounts of dreaming about this man, alongside a single simple composite sketch. Within months, thousands of submissions poured in from different countries claiming to have seen the identical face in their own dreams, often described as menacing or unsettling. Media outlets across Europe picked up the story. It spread across message boards as one of the internet's first viral collective nightmare phenomena. It was, in the end, a marketing hoax, created by an Italian marketing team as a viral experiment, later confirmed by the site's own creators once the campaign achieved its goal. But here's the part that still gets debated. Psychologists point out that simple, symmetrical composite faces are unusually easy for the brain to falsely recognize from memory, meaning the hoax may have accidentally stumbled onto a genuine, if mundane, quirk of human perception, even though the phenomenon itself was manufactured. So far, an unclaimed cryptography puzzle, a signal from space that's never repeated, an anonymous TV hijacker, and a face manufactured by marketers that thousands of strangers swore they recognized. Every one of these plays on the same instinct, the fear of something coordinated and intelligent operating just outside what we can see. That instinct gets a lot harder to laugh off in the next segment. Since at least the mid-20th century, shortwave radio listeners around the world have stumbled onto something genuinely eerie. Unlicensed radio stations broadcasting nothing but strings of spoken numbers, letters, or Morse code, often read in a flat, robotic monotone, sometimes preceded by a few bars of music, then repeating for hours before going silent. These are widely believed by intelligence researchers to be number stations, one-way encrypted communication channels used by government intelligence agencies to send coded messages to field operatives using a one-time pad cipher, a system considered mathematically unbreakable if used correctly, since the operative simply needs the matching printed code sheet to decode the numbers. No government has ever officially confirmed operating one. But a well-documented 2001 case makes the theory hard to dismiss. The FBI arrested a Cuban intelligence operative in the US found in possession of decryption software and a shortwave radio tuned to frequencies matching a known number station. Several such stations are still broadcasting today, monitored obsessively by hobbyists who catalog their schedules and call signs, with zero explanation ever offered by anyone actually responsible for them. Real spies, real code, real silence when you ask questions. That's unsettling in a controlled, almost clinical way. What's coming next is unsettling for a completely different reason. Because it isn't from the Cold War. It's from an AI, and it's brand new. In 2022, an anonymous digital artist online was experimenting with an early AI image generator, feeding it negative prompts, instructing the model to move as far as possible from a certain word or concept. Following a chain of these negative prompts led, unexpectedly and repeatedly, to the same recurring image. A distorted, elderly woman's face, discolored, with an expression widely described by viewers as deeply unsettling, nicknamed Loeb by the artist who found her. What made it spread internationally wasn't just the image itself, it was that whenever Loeb's image was fed back into the AI as a new prompt, the system kept generating disturbing, violent-themed follow-up images featuring her, regardless of what the accompanying text prompt said, as if the model had latched onto some deep, uneditable association buried in its training data. AI researchers have debated the explanation ever since. Some argue it's simply an emergent artifact of how these particular models process negative space in their training data, essentially a coincidence with a scary face. Others argue it's a genuine, unsolved case study in exactly how unpredictable and difficult to fully explain today's AI image models really are, even to the engineers who build them. A 2022 mystery generated by a machine nobody fully understands. Now we're going back to fiction that convinced people it was real. A shared universe of horror built entirely by strangers on the internet, some of whom took it further than anyone expected. Starting around 2007, an anonymous collaborative fiction site called the SCP Foundation began publishing short documents written like genuine, redacted government files, describing a secretive organization that secures, contains, and protects anomalous, dangerous entities and objects from the public. The format was the trick, clinical, bureaucratic language, fake classification stamps, and cross-referenced incident reports written by hundreds of anonymous contributors worldwide, creating the illusion of a massive, consistent, real bureaucracy. It became one of the largest collaborative fiction projects on the internet, with tens of thousands of individual entries. Around the same period, standalone horror mythologies, most famously Slender Man, created in 2009 as a Photoshop contest entry on the forum Something Awful, spread the same way, through fake found footage, invented backstories, and communities treating fiction as documented fact for atmosphere. The line between fiction as game and fiction as belief became a real, documented problem. In 2014, two 12-year-old girls in Wisconsin lured a classmate into the woods and stabbed her 19 times, later telling police they believed they needed to prove their loyalty to the fictional Slender Man to avoid being killed by him. The victim survived. Both perpetrators were found to have significant untreated mental health conditions well before the attack, and the case remains one of the starkest reminders that entirely fictional internet mythology can, in rare cases, intersect with real, serious danger for vulnerable individuals who lose the ability to separate the story from reality. We've gone from puzzles, to hoaxes, to fiction blurring into belief. The next two cases aren't fiction at all. They're two of the most disturbing real events the internet has ever turned into entertainment, and both involve real people who actually died. For over a decade, dark corners of the internet have circulated the legend of red rooms, supposed live-streamed torture or murder broadcasts, allegedly accessible somewhere on the dark web to anyone willing to pay in cryptocurrency. Cybersecurity researchers who have spent years actually investigating the dark web are remarkably consistent on this point. Despite the myth's massive online popularity, no verified, confirmed Red Room has ever actually been found. Every viral leaked Red Room video that has gone around at various points has been traced back to either a hoax, a piece of horror fiction short film, or in a few cases, recycled footage from an unrelated, already public crime. That doesn't mean the dark web is harmless. Genuinely illegal marketplaces absolutely do exist there. But the specific Red Room legend functions almost exactly like a modern update of much older urban legends. It spreads because it's terrifying and unfalsifiable, not because anyone has ever produced real evidence of it. Researchers generally agree the myth persists because it taps into a very old fear, that somewhere, unseen, someone is being hurt for entertainment, and nobody is stopping it. A myth that preys on fear but has never been proven real. Unfortunately, the next two cases in this video are the opposite. They are completely real, and they're far more disturbing precisely because of that. February 1959. 9 experienced Soviet hikers, led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, are on a skiing expedition through the northern Ural Mountains. They never return. A search party finds their tent on February 26th, cut open from the inside, abandoned in the middle of the freezing night, with all of the hikers' boots and warm clothing still left behind inside. The first 5 bodies found were partially dressed and appeared to have died of hypothermia after fleeing the tent barefoot into sub-zero temperatures. But the remaining 4 bodies, found months later under deep snow, showed severe internal injuries. A fatal skull fracture, and 2 of the hikers had massive chest trauma described by the original examining doctor as comparable to being hit by a car, with no external skin wounds to explain it. 1 woman was missing her tongue and eyes. The original 1959 Soviet inquest offered almost no real explanation, blaming a vague, compelling natural force and immediately classifying the entire case file. A decision that fueled 6 full decades of theories, from secret weapons testing to inevitably, claims of something otherworldly. In 2019, and again in 2020, Russian investigators reopened the case using modern forensic modeling. Their conclusion: a rare, delayed slab avalanche most likely struck the tent hours after it was pitched, forcing a panicked, underdressed escape in the dark, with several hikers later falling into a ravine in the disorientation and confusion, causing the severe blunt trauma. A 2021 peer-reviewed study by Swiss physicists supported this exact mechanism as physically plausible for the specific terrain. Not everyone accepts the avalanche explanation as fully satisfying. Critics point out the timing and injury patterns still leave real, unresolved questions. But it stands, today, as the most scientifically supported explanation for one of the 20th century's most enduring true mysteries. 9 deaths, 60 years of theories, and a modern scientific explanation that still doesn't answer every question. Now, for the final and darkest case. A mystery that started as pure internet entertainment, involving a woman who was very real and very much a victim, long before the internet decided her death was a puzzle to solve. January 2013. Eliza Lam, a 21-year-old Canadian university student from Vancouver, checks into the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, a building with an already dark history, having once housed serial killer Richard Ramirez. She is last seen alive on January 31st. Her parents, who spoke with her daily, report her missing on February 8th. On February 13th, the LAPD releases roughly 2.5 minutes of hotel elevator surveillance footage in hopes the public can help locate her. What the footage shows instead becomes one of the most viewed, most dissected videos in internet history. Lam pressing every single button on the panel, stepping in and out of the elevator repeatedly, peering into the empty hallway, and making erratic hand gestures, while the elevator doors remain open behind her the entire time, never closing on their own. Within 10 days, the clip had racked up millions of views and tens of thousands of comments internationally, with viewers convinced they were watching her interact with someone, or something, unseen. 19 days later, on February 19th, a maintenance worker responding to guest complaints about low water pressure and a strange taste in the tap water climbed to the roof and found Lam's naked body inside one of the hotel's large rooftop water cisterns that were supposed to be locked and alarmed. There was no evidence of trauma, sexual assault, or forced entry. Toxicology found no illegal drugs and no alcohol beyond a trace amount. The coroner's report, made public months later, ruled the death an accidental drowning, listing her bipolar disorder, for which blood tests showed she had stopped taking her prescribed medication, as a significant contributing factor to the disorientation seen in the footage. And that should have been the end of it. Instead, the elevator footage became one of the internet's most analyzed paranormal videos of the decade, spawning conspiracy theories, true crime reenactments, a metal song built around the footage, and a 2021 Netflix docuseries, almost none of which meaningfully engaged with the documented medical explanation already sitting in the public coroner's report. A real young woman, in a documented mental health crisis, alone and frightened in an elevator during what would become the last hours of her life, was turned into global internet entertainment before her own family had even finished grieving. Some of the internet's darkest rabbit holes are elaborate hoaxes nobody ever claimed credit for. Some are genuine unsolved science. And some are simply real tragedies that a global audience decided were more interesting as a mystery than as a person. The unsettling part isn't that we don't have answers. It's how easily we stop looking for them once the story becomes fun to tell. If the Eliza Lam case hit different once you knew what the coroner's report actually said, you need to see our next video, 5 haunted locations with a real, documented explanation. Which rabbit hole on this list did you already know the ending to? And which one genuinely surprised you? Tell us in the comments. We read every one.